Are you a farmer or butcher ready to master direct-to-consumer marketing and meet success? Then you're in the right place. I'm Jared Hawken, the founder of ChopLocal. Each episode of this podcast features interviews with farmers and butchers who have built successful direct-to-consumer meat businesses, and they're going to share their secrets for success with you. From actionable tips to inspiring stories, this podcast has ingredients you will need to succeed in the meat business. After the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social. And check out the rest of our educational resources at ChopLocalUniversity.com. Now, let's turn it over to my business partner, Katie, to get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Meat Success Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Olthoff, the co-founder of ChopLocal and ChopLocal University. And today's episode, we're going to kind of go back to something we haven't done recently, which is interview somebody that is in marketing for a local farm. We're going to talk about their story. And I think we're going to dive a little bit into Shopify today. So if you are kind of considering which platform you should set up your online store on, or you're just wondering about more information about Shopify or how people are using Shopify, we are definitely going to talk about that today. So I am joined here with Mackenzie Wright from Jones Brothers Farm in Kentucky. Thank you, Mackenzie, for joining us today.
No problem. I appreciate being asked to come on.
Yeah. So Mackenzie reached out. She found us online recently and reached out with flattering words, which of course I loved. And so we connected a little bit and we had an initial consultation call to find out how we might work together, which by the way is free for any of our listeners. If you want to hop on for a half an hour with me, we can do that and talk about how I might be able to help with your marketing, if you're a good fit for ChopLocal, that sort of thing. But she and I talked and started talking about Shopify, what we like about it, and that sort of thing. And I thought this would be a good discussion to bring onto the podcast so that you all can kind of eavesdrop on it and listen to it. So thanks again, Mackenzie. Start out, just tell us more about Jones Brothers Farm, what you offer, how you sell it. I know you do online, but do you have a farm store, or farmers markets? Give us just kind of that whole background.
I guess I should preface that I am not a part of the Jones family, so I kind of get to tell their story in a way that most people don't like to brag about themselves. So that kind of gives me a unique perspective look at it. So the Jones boys were raised athletes in a gym. Their dad is a historic, well-known regional basketball coach, and their grandpa had a tobacco farm, and he gave them some space in his tobacco field to start a tomato crop while Taylor was in college. He had done an ag econ project about the viability of, can we do field grown tomatoes and sell them? And it was like, maybe we can't. So they kind of got their hands dirty and started cutting their teeth with grandpa a little on the side, and it kind of has grown from there. Since 2010 is when they would say that they have established the farm as Jones Brothers. It's Taylor and Zach Jones, the brothers, and then me kind of as the farm crew. They raise a wide variety of things. When I do tours here at the farm, I really highlight on that diversity is the key to this operation. Diversity is how we have managed to have 3 families now, mine included, truly be able to feed our families and our kids from what these guys are doing. So we beef cattle, tobacco. They were a hemp crop farm here in the past. We obviously have the tomatoes, we have sweet corn, we have watermelon acres. I think we're at 30 acres of watermelon right now. The tobacco is replacing hemp this year, obviously. They do hay silage. They have done massive amounts of garden vegetables. We've actually had to cut that back this year due to a lot of different reasons and constraints. But all of the beef that we use and sell for the operation is raised literally in Taylor's backyard. I'm sure his wife loves that it's that close to their house, but it's all raised right there. We have a finishing barn there with a nice J-bunk. I'm a farm tour nerd, so I'm always like, let me see what you did and how you want to do it different. So when I first came around, I was like, this is cool. I liked it. So they've got a J-bunk. We are not afraid. This is one of the things that took me a while to get comfortable with, of saying we're a conventional farm. I'm a former ag teacher, so I feel like one of the things that I bring to the table for them is a really good ability to educate people on why we choose to be a conventional farm and have those hard conversations sometimes about mRNA vaccines. I got blown up with that a couple years ago, and I was like, what is this? But you have to answer those questions. What we are selling is not so much a New York strip or a filet, it is who is raising it that I'm selling more than the beef itself. We don't shy away from those questions. We don't advertise, hey, at some point, if your animal got vaccines as a calf. We don't put that out there, but we also don't shy away from, when people come to us and they're like, oh, has this animal ever had vaccines? Well, let me tell you what it got. Let me explain why, and to have those conversations. So we originally, when I first came around, I worked for the guys for 4 years now, I think. It's kind of all blurring together. But we were just in large shares, wholes, halves, quarters. And then when last July, I left teaching and came here full time, and I really pushed hard for single cuts. We had done in the spring what we call beef boxes, which I curated together, like we have an ultimate steak box, we have a ground beef box, which is like for moms like me with young kids. I'm like, they were shocked at how well they sold. I'm like, this is because you men are not in the kitchen and buying groceries. Like, this guy's gonna fly out of here. You just don't even know it. So we'd done beef boxes and they had went well. Our customers are not rural people. That's another thing that we can talk about later is when we're talking about marketing, you got to know your customers. I'm not selling to the Mackenzies of the world. Mackenzie's got her own animals and she's taken them to the process. I'm selling to urban people who want to feel connected to their food, who want to feel connected to the farm, that have small fridges and small freezers. So that's when we started our wheels started turning on the beef boxes. And then eventually with me being here full time and able to manage inventory and count steaks and organize them when we get the animals back, we went into the single cuts. Single cuts have been going great. We can't keep fillets. We can't keep New Yorks. Now, obviously some of the stuff sells faster, but I can't keep ground beef either. So in the world of processing animals, I can always get some ground beef.
Right. I was going to ask how that transition went and if there was was there kind of an adjustment period where you had to figure out I feel like the risk that I hear or the hesitation that I hear from producers when they're thinking about moving from quarters, halves, and wholes to individual cuts is, how do I manage that carcass so that I don't end up with a lot of ground beef or I don't end up with a lot of roasts that aren't selling and that sort of thing? Did you have a transition period there, or did your curated beef boxes kind of help with that?
Beef boxes definitely helped because they helped us to move a larger money amount at a single time. So also, I kind of forgot about this. The one thing that also makes us unique is we're a delivery. So there is no store here. I mean, there's obviously a door people could walk into my office, but we do not advertise ourselves as a store. We have no store hours. We do everything delivery. So the beef boxes helped us increase dollar value per mile when we start putting the numbers in the spreadsheets.
Like your average helps you boost that average order value a little bit.
It did take me a while to learn some things the hard way. There are certain cuts that just don't move well. I think the important thing is to try them. Nobody says you have to get a whole animal with that cut sheet. If you're at the right processor, let me say that. If you're at the right processor, he should be willing to say, okay, you can use this on 3/4 and let's do a quarter amount. And for me, it was things with bone in. Ribeye, bone in sell great. T-bones, porterhouses, not moving. Ribs, not moving.
I was expecting you to say, you mentioned roasts earlier, especially talking about knowing your customers. My podcast listeners have probably heard me say this a dozen times, but we, at least in Iowa, Midwest farm families, we grew up with a roast on Sunday, every Sunday. And even now, I love to talk about roasts in my crock pot over the summer, not heating up my kitchen. I can go to the pool with the kids in the afternoon. Like you said, I run a summer schedule with my kids. We can go to the pool in the afternoon and come home and we can have pulled pork nachos or whatever it might be. So I love a roast in the crock pot. But for some reason, our customers are not buying those, but it always shocks farmers. So I wasn't surprised when I heard you mention roasts, but that is really interesting that the ribs and the bone-in cuts are not. Now, again, talking about target customers, are most of your customers men or women?
So most of our customer base is women, and the average age of our customers is 45 to 65. They are some crock pot people. We tend to move a lot of chuck roast. I move a lot of chuck roast, but I built those into my boxes, and I made sure to specify the size that I wanted because as a mom that uses crock pot, I'm like, don't give me a 6-pound roast that I have to thaw the whole thing, try to figure out how to cut. If it's not easy, if it's not convenient, I'm not gonna cook it. I'm not gonna eat it, and then I'm not gonna come back to you and buy more. The whole idea is that we're selling consumable, eat it. Like if they can't use it, it's not going to go well.
I also think with your kind of target audience, it's maybe not the 45, but I mean, getting closer to that 60 age range, those might be empty nesters and they're cooking differently than they were. I mean, in addition to my daughter, who's only 9, I've got 2 teenage boys. So if we hadn't had her 6 years later, we would be getting really close to being empty nesters. And that is going to change. Instead of my oldest son eating a steak and a half the other night for dinner, we're going to go down back to one package that we get out and a smaller roast, or we're going to be eating it forever, you know? So that is an interesting way to think about it. I also tend to think about men being more likely to be like the hobby grillers or smokers, and the ribs and the T-bones and porterhouse, the bigger steaks. Those to me speak a little bit more to that kind of men as a meat hobby type audience, you know, which for some people that's their target audience and they can really play that up.
So most of our customers, you asked me this in another conversation about the overlap between our produce and our beef customers. I think that our beef customers have been driven from our produce sales. I think that is partially in large why we have so many females buying the beef, because we are not just a beef delivery service. I carry ice cream, I have fresh eggs. These are all from friendly farms around us. So we've got ice cream coming from a farm down the county, another county over. I've got eggs coming from a county over. We have some cheeses. I'm low on those right now because they move. What else do I have? We have chicken. So we are sourcing things from other people to try and give this established produce seeking customer base more options, and they have loved it. That customer base was built on the CSA subscriptions with the produce. So my email listserv, which you and I agree is like gold, right out of my dead hands, like you're not ever getting it, was getting the emails about vegetables. And they love the vegetables. And so when I started sprinkling in, hey, who needs spring honey bears or a pint of honey? They were like, well, I love what you're selling me this other stuff. Save me the Kroger trip or save me from buying things I don't know. So we already had an established customer base of that female population that was buying 5 and 10 pounds of tomatoes every week, and they're getting sweet corn, that vegetable base. So I think that's also part of why we probably have such an established female population.
That totally makes sense. Again, if we think about traditional gender roles, who's buying the fruits and vegetables to keep their family healthy? It's generally the women. Now, I saw on your Facebook page that like your tomatoes you sell largely in 5 and 10 pound. What does 5 pounds of tomatoes look like? Because I am not good on the produce side with my family.
We sell a variety of what we call a slicer tomato. So some of our tomatoes can be like softball, close to a pound sized tomatoes.
Okay, and they've got lots of fluid in them, which weighs a lot, right?
We have them in a greenhouse, but they're raised here and they're harvested at red or at a pink stage. We kind of call it a pinky orange so that they got a few like to get boxed and delivered. But you're talking anywhere from, on the smaller side, a box could have 8 tomatoes in it for 5 pounds. On a larger side, it might have 4 to 5, maybe 6.
So that makes sense that you have kind of that carryover. I also saw on Facebook something about farmers markets. Do you do farmers markets too? Is that how they built the customer base, or has it always been this delivery model?
So Taylor likes to joke that back in the day they had a Tommy Boy summer. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Tommy Boy, but where they were growing all of this stuff and were just like,
what are we going to do with it?
So they just started driving around and selling it to independent grocery stores and trying to move these watermelon and tomatoes. We go to only one farmer's market, and that's here locally in the county where we sit. It's a quarter mile down the road on Thursday evenings. And the reason for that is the way that he explains it, which I thought was a pretty good analogy, was with us being a delivery service, a farmer's market would basically be like, let me go to your sandbox and steal your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we only go to one farmer's market, which I, as the manager of all this, am totally okay with because that'd be me. So Emma, Zach's wife, goes and takes our stuff to the farmer's market. She only takes our vegetables to the farmer's market. We have rolled around the idea of doing pre-orders with the option for farmer's market pickup. And then I would still control inventory, bag it, box it, whatever, put it in the coolers, it rides with them into the farmer's market, and then you are responsible for getting there and getting it.
If you decide to do that, I just worked with a farm in Indiana on their Shopify. We installed a new app on Shopify that allows for that pickup. They can choose the pickup. There's also a cutoff time, so they have to order by a certain time period. And we'll talk about Shopify. But as always, installing a new app on Shopify, there's some unknowns, and it's worked pretty well.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in that option for sure, because I think we have a lot of interest in that. And I wouldn't mind it even do pickup here if I could specify when they can come.
Yeah, and that would be an option too. So there's some cool options. So I get the sense that a good chunk of your business is kind of that wholesale. I think, again, I saw on the Facebook page that you supply some ground beef for some restaurants potentially. Are you doing produce for restaurants too, or small grocery stores? Is that a big chunk of the business?
We are looking to go more into that and expanding. Again, it kind of comes down to the dollar value of miles per gallon and insurance and all those external overhead factors that, say, hey, if I can take one farm stand 50 boxes, which is 500 pounds of tomatoes, versus taking Katie one 5-pound box and then having to drive 2 miles to her neighbor. We're looking into more of that just because we have the tomatoes, we have the supply, we have the ability to do more of that, and it's more lucrative to do that on a Tuesday and then do our home delivery on Thursday and Friday.
And you're not shipping at all.
We have not mastered shipping. I have not endeavored or tipped my toe into shipping just because of the cost. I know that you have a lot of resources on shipping, and I've definitely been like snooping around being like, okay, which one of these am I going to get in on? Because we're very interested in it. And we have a lot of people that try to get us to ship tomatoes. And I'm like, do you know, you'd get salsa. You wouldn't get a tomato.
Yeah, you better be ready to can those or make sauce out of those, right? We do have a lot of resources on shipping, and shipping frozen meat, I'd feel very comfortable teaching you how to do that. I have no clue how to ship a very delicate tomato because you're right, like that is a totally different ball game. It's kind of like we've had people ask us about shipping eggs before. And I did talk to one farmer who individually wraps eggs for shipping, and I'm like, she charges a pretty penny for it. It is possible to do. And she has customers who, I think the customers were in Atlanta. So, major metropolitan area that were willing to pay for it. But it's not something that I would probably work into my business plan if I were in your shoes, at least for the produce. So let's talk about Shopify. I don't remember if you said it was when you came on full time, but fairly recently in the last few years, you kind of made a spreadsheet, looked at some other platforms to really decide, is Shopify the right one that we should be on, right? And I will say, obviously, I'm a fan of the ChopLocal marketplace for some small meat businesses. I also have worked with people who use Squarespace for their e-commerce, and it works fine, particularly if you have a small number of items. You're not running a lot of specials, you're not shipping, you don't need a lot of customization. I have also obviously worked with Shopify, and it has a lot of benefits too. But I'm curious to know, what kinds of things did you look at when you were looking at these other platforms, and why did you decide to stick with Shopify from there?
So we got to Shopify before I came on. So when I came around, Zach was like, here's what we use. Okay. And I, like most of people our age, I just peck around and learn as I go, trial by fire. If I've got an undo button, I can learn a lot. So I just started learning, and then there were several systems. We were using an independent system for our routing and delivery. Then we had Shopify for our sales. So, and those two things did not talk to each other. So when we were looking at the finances, because let's be for real, end of the day, we all have to be looking at that, or we're not going to be able to keep doing what we want to do. We're looking at the finances, and I was like, hey, this platform for delivery is really costing us a lot. And dang, Shopify is too. What are we doing? I was like, let's look around. So I started doing research, looked at, I think, 3 to 4 other options, had conference calls with those people, got to ask all of my questions, because as the person on the backside, I knew what I needed to ask. I knew what I wanted it to do. I knew what Shopify was already doing for me. I knew that I wanted transactions to be housed in-house. I didn't want to have to get my own processing type of, I can't think of what that's called, but there's a whole piece to some of those independent CSA based again, and I'm speaking to this as looking at it from the produce side of stuff. Knowing we were going to eventually put beef on there, I was looking at it from the produce side. So Shopify had their own like credit card processing system built in. That was big. And then I discovered, I guess, the app store of Shopify. And it's basically, if you've never looked at it, it's like the app store on an Apple or an Android phone. Anything you could possibly want Shopify to do, like you were talking about the pickup thing, love it. I don't know why I didn't think to look for that myself, but I'm going to here in just a second. You can add it and it builds into Shopify. Everything's in one place. Now, I also say that with the caveat of the amount of eggs in this basket of Shopify is great. So we grew from 2 separate platforms for delivery and for sales, minimal website management, I found an app for our routing that links straight to the orders. So within about 30 minutes of a customer placing an order, I can add that order to a route and alter the route. It optimizes the routes so that I know my drivers are going the fastest, most economical way. It gives me all kinds of good analytical data on those routes. And it was very economically, it maybe have been a little more pricey, but for the time it was saving and the efficiency and accuracy, which was huge. The one thing I will say is, we all know that if you're dealing directly with customers is, Zach told a story once about that, he had read that people that have a bad experience at a restaurant that gets corrected well, like above and beyond, like, oh my gosh, we're so, the just schmoozing over this corrective action that you've had to go through. People are more likely to go back to that restaurant than one that just took care of them as an average customer consistently. Like they'll go back to somebody that apologized. So the customer service piece, that's kind of our model. That's our method. If I do somebody wrong or if somebody gets bad stuff or whatever, I am gushing over them to fix it. So when I was comparing, I wanted it to have a built-in routing system. For our model of delivery, that was huge. I found that carrying in between the two systems, orders, somehow the Excel sheet didn't carry them over if they weren't formatted right. The addresses could sometimes not be accurate. It wouldn't let me do longitude and latitude, like pin drops, and so I can on the other system. So routing was huge for me. We also, at the time, wanted to do an app. And so I learned how to build an app last fall. It was really cool. And then I also learned why people don't build apps, because
I should do a solo podcast about apps, because we do not have an app. At my previous job, we had an app that I inherited when I came into it, and I ended up getting rid of it. I feel like there are very few use cases where an e-commerce website needs an app. And some of some of the websites that I shop from regularly, now I use the Amazon app, if I'm getting clothes for my kids and stuff like that, I have the Kohl's app. And now because Kohl's invested in their app instead, their website is terribly slow and clunky. And so I had to get the app. But I really am like, why did Kohl's need an app? I don't know. I don't think that they did. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. And I actually saw just the other day, I saw a crowdfunding local foods company that basically was crowdfunding for the next stage of their company. And they said that they had started with an app. And they said that now they need a website because they have found that unless people are very tech savvy, they're not ordering from an app very often. They're more likely to just order off the website. And I think about those 45 to 60-year-old women you were talking about, people like me who do not want to download another app. And yeah, anyway, okay, sorry. There was my little mini episode, a solo episode on apps.
We can definitely come back to that conversation another time, because it's a hole that people need to be very cautious of before they invest down it. But we wanted an app. We were going after a new market. We were really looking to expand into a new market, and we felt like the app would get us into a new age category, which it would have. It would have. You're right. There's an age group, and our age group is website and email based. They are getting those little email pop-ups. That's where they're shopping. But there's an untapped market for us that is an app okay based category. And we saw a lot of sales through that app when it was effective and working. So I'm not saying it was terrible. The experience of me dealing with it was terrible because...
So the ROI wasn't there for the work that you put into it then?
Yeah, and like I said, it came down to the legalities of who owned it. So routing, we wanted an app. I also wanted to expand into subscription options. So like reoccurring charges. We were selling weekly individual items of tomatoes. So May 15th, May, whatever the next week was, okay, so like right now you go on my website and you could buy tomatoes just for June 26th. You could buy those still individually, and they're always going to be listed that way on our website because I know that I have that customer base that's looking for, I just want to pay it all up front. I want to be done with it. They don't understand the subscription, and I'm not asking them to learn that. The subscription is there for people that may want to only be charged a little bit of an amount along the way. So all their charges get hit on Sundays. I put all their orders in on Monday. Delivery happens later that week.
So this is super interesting. We need to talk about this because I'm looking at it now on the jonesbrothersfarm.com website. So instead of having a subscription for tomatoes, I can go in here and I can say, I want tomatoes weekly. So I'm going to buy June 26th box, a July 3rd box, a July 10th box, a July 17th, and I can buy all of those at once. Or I could come in here and I could buy June 26th this week, and I could buy July 3rd's next week. Or I could say, I want one box every 2 weeks, and I could buy June 26th and July 10th, right? Okay. That is so interesting. I've never thought about doing it like that versus using a subscription model where you just sign up for weekly box of tomatoes or twice monthly box of tomatoes or whatever it is. So is that different from what you consider a CSA, or like how is a CSA versus a subscription versus this system? I don't know what to call it. Like, how are those all different, or do you kind of just group them all together?
Yes and no is like the hard answer there. Because when I think of a CSA, I think of the payment is sometimes upfront, but also sometimes subscription, but on a weekly charge, but a little less unknown of what you're going to get. To me, a CSA is I am buying a part of whatever's in your garden fresh that week. I may not know what's coming. And when we did the CSA boxes, what made us different was we guaranteed tomatoes and corn, and then you really did get a variety of whatever was available. I did things like recipe cards in those boxes based upon whatever the variety item was. Huge hit. People loved the recipe cards because we were sending them things like acorn squash, and they were like, is this decor? Maybe. It could be decor, whatever you want. We find that my older age group of people that know already, hey, I have a vacation the week of July 10th. I don't need that week. But I also don't know how to go in and pause my subscription. I don't want to have to come back to this. I don't want to deal with it. I want to buy it and forget about it. They tend to go in and pick the 26th, the 3rd, skip the 10th. They'll buy 6 weeks worth of tomatoes and pay all at one time and skip the weeks they know they're going to be out of town. My younger demographic loves that they can go in and skip, they can go in and pause, they can change products, they can add eggs to the subscriptions because eggs are also offered on a subscription. It keeps their credit card information. That's a little bit more of my tech savvy, based customers.
Because you do have that tomato subscription option too. So you're giving them both options. They can either do a subscription the way that we do Amazon Subscribe and Save, where I just had to edit mine this morning because why does that always happen? Something shows up and I'm like, I have 6 months worth of dishwasher tabs. Why did I forget to cancel it again? But then as soon as I slow it down and I'll be like, skip this month, then all of a sudden my family, then all of a sudden everybody's home for the summer and they're like, Mom, there's no toilet paper. And I'm like, I need more coffee. So you give them both options. And then do you have a CSA that is like you said, do you still have that tomato and corn plus whatever seasonal, or not really?
I kind of touched on this lightly before. We were a pretty large hemp growing farm, very profitable in the hemp sector of the farm. It kind of helped to bankroll the loss of acreage that we needed to put into the variety options. We had hovering around 15 to 20 acres of garden space for all of the CSA stuff we did last year. With the loss of the hemp crop, the ground kind of became a situation of we got to make the most money we can from every piece of ground that we have access to. So a lot of our garden space was lost back to, actually all of the garden space, well, except for the small family, for them, went back to tobacco production. So this year is the first year in 6 or 7 years that we have not offered a variety box, typical true CSA option kind of deal. Had a lot of customers sad about it. A lot of customers, we're trying to be very truthful, very transparent on, hey, this is a business. We are trying to feed our families just like we want to feed yours. And they've been very understanding, very apologetic. They're like, we hate that that's happened for you all, but we understand we're still buying the tomatoes and corn. So no, we don't have the variety items this year.
Did something change with the hemp market in Kentucky or laws or something like that? Or
Yeah, so hemp being raised for CBD. Oh yeah. So hemp being raised for CBD is cut off. So it's a much deeper rabbit hole than you probably want to deal with, but we lost that side of the diversity, I guess you could still say, the second longest hemp producing farm in the state of Kentucky. So it was a major sucker punch to the gut to lose that particular side of, and it was a profitable market for us.
Interesting. Well, gosh, you learn something new every day.
Back to the good old Kentucky tobacco farms is what we're going.
And it's interesting. I can't help but think back to what you said about like a lot of eggs in the Shopify basket, but thank goodness you have some other, thank goodness it wasn't just the CBD hemp that was the only farm product, having that diversification has, I'm sure, helped. So I got us off track because I was just fascinated by this kind of subscription versus CSA versus buy my weeks that I want tomatoes in advance type of a thing. You wanted a route system. You wanted to be able to do the subscriptions and that sort of thing. What other things were you looking for when you were kind of comparing these platforms?
I wanted a built-in email.
So you don't use an outside email platform at all. You do it all through Shopify.
I use an app built into my Shopify that collects customer emails through sales, but also you can sign up for emails through some of my catch points on my website. You want a beef buying guide, give me your email and you can have it. So I wanted email because total sales from email, what the number that I'm looking at right now would probably tell you it's close to probably half, 2/3. Now we obviously do marketing in other places, but our emails are crazy high.
I totally agree with you, obviously, on the importance of email, but I don't feel like I've heard from very many people who are using Shopify's native email system. I feel like a lot of them are using something like Drip or MailChimp or Klaviyo or something external, but you're just sticking with what is available there.
So we use Seguno, Seguno email. There is a Shopify email thing built in there. I've never used it. Again, Seguno was something that Zach already had found when I came on board. It has some really awesome templates for newsletters with, colorful template guides. And when we first started, we did not utilize all of that. I was very new and green to it. And then I was like, oh, wait, there's a template for Father's Day and a template for Memorial Day. And so it looks very high end when I send out an email. Like this week's Monday email it said something about Father's Day, and the little graphic on it was like a popsicle, and like chunks of the popsicle got eaten away as you were scrolling down. Had like a nice yellow background. Super cute. I could have never figured out how to load that graphic in there. It was great. And then I highlighted our new ice creams that we just got back in stock. I love the email integration. I love that the emails get housed there instead of me having to go to Shopify and move them to MailChimp.
I will just point out for our listeners that with almost every email service, you can connect it to Shopify so that you wouldn't have to do that manually. So that is something, again, if you're happy with Seguno, like you said, you have great templates and things like that, great. And that's one of the benefits that I see of Shopify is that because it is probably the widest used e-commerce platform literally in the world, it connects with almost everything. It connects easily with Google Analytics. It connects easily with Google Ads. And that is one of the things that when I'm looking at what is the right platform for the right farm is if they have an ads budget, then we talk about, okay, then you're going to want something that has that simple connection. And so one other thing, and you can share this if you want to, you don't have to, is what is it costing you? You said it costs a little bit more maybe once you add in the email app or the Route app or something like that.
So the good thing I think about Shopify is that I can kind of alter our monthly billing by what I need to use. So seasonal sales, we're in the produce, is a little higher because I've got more drivers on the routing app is charged based upon how many drivers. Well, obviously I got more drivers in the summer than I do in the winter. I will say there's a lot of different levels to Shopify. Obviously the higher you go, the more flexibility you get, the more options you have. But it all depends upon, there is a free option for people that are looking to just toe in the water. Can I navigate this? If you are not a super, tech savvy person, which I was not. I don't have a background in, website design and stuff like that. I think that the website design piece was also huge for me when it came to Shopify. I loved that there was a free template for my website that I actually liked. I like how our website looks. I'm looking at my tabs right now on my other screen over here, and on your tab, there's a JBF logo. And I figured out how to do that at the top. That was a big win for me. Like I was like, ooh, I figured that out. The color palette, I was able to modify all of those little things that were important to us. Now, there are a lot of features for high-end websites that we don't get access to because we don't pay for them. I don't have to pay for them. My website's converting just fine. I don't need videos to play on a stream. Those are really amazing, but my customers, they're here to buy tomatoes. They are used to seeing a farmer's market with a handwritten paper sign. Like, they're there for tomatoes. So, but I have learned and I have studied a lot of things like on the tomato page. One of the things that I did not like was that all my product images were the same. If you look, the background is all the same. And someone suggested to me when I did my website audit, they were like, why don't you put the date so that it's really clear? So now I have in blue letters, June 26th, July 3rd. It was an easy Canva change and boom, now they look more unique. It's clearer. I loved the website editing ability. Now there are some times now that I'm more advanced, I say that very modestly about Shopify, that I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that. But very rarely do I find something that I cannot get Shopify to do for me.
I think one thing that I hear kind of in our world of farms selling locally is a few years ago, it was really common advice for people to say, Shopify is great for e-commerce, but it's not great for your website. It doesn't have a lot of options for website design. So you need to have a Squarespace website with a Shopify online store. Mackenzie's shaking her head. For those of you listening, she's shaking her head no, and so am I. Like, that is kind of outdated advice at this point. And one of the things that I love about Shopify, and Mackenzie pulled up a really quick report to see how many sales were coming from email. I love that it is so easy for me to see for my clients where their orders are coming from. If you have Shopify and you're not checking out your marketing attribution report regularly, I encourage you to go look at that all the time, because that tells you where investing in your marketing is working and where those orders are coming from. But if you have a Squarespace website and then you're linking to a Shopify store, you lose that attribution. You don't have that direct connection. And so you have no idea if they click to your website from Facebook, from Instagram, from an email, where it's coming from, because everything in Shopify just says it came from your website, basically. So anyway, that's another bone I have to pick about advice on Shopify is you don't need another website anymore. Their options for website design have improved so much. So
I also would say the other thing that I have found that they changed recently that has hugely helped me was one of the things I struggled with was the analytics side of Shopify, and finding the specific thing that I wanted to look at was like, for example, the guys would come in and they would be like, hey, can you tell us how many beef boxes we sold in Union, Kentucky? Is it worth our money to keep going to this zip code? And I would spend hours trying to like dig down the rabbit hole through Shopify and narrow that down. Well, now they have this little built-in AI bot thing. What is he called? He is my best friend.
like you can just ask him questions in natural language and he's going to figure out where the answer is, right?
It's amazing. I love it. I can say, I literally, like I'm talking, and I am, yes, one of those people that talks to ChatGPT like it's my friend, okay?
We've talked a lot about AI on this podcast, and my business partner, Jared, sent me a message the other day, and he ended it with, "Would you like me to create a one-pager on that?" And then in parentheses, put Jared GPT. And I was like, yeah, yes, please. So anyway.
But I can tell this little AI bot in Shopify, hey, I need to know how many orders were sold in this specific zip code over this date range that fall under the tagging of beef. Boom. I can instantly see that I sold, let's say, 27 orders in this area versus 75 in this area, and the gas mileage to get there the math ain't mathing. So we cut off that thing there. I love that Shopify, also one of the things that we have helped to do that we added this year that has helped us in terms of covering the cost of Shopify is a processing fee. Every website that you're going to compare, every service you're going to compare is going to have a different chunk of the pie they're going to want to take. Sometimes that's 3 little chunks that look really innocent, and you put them together and you're like, you're at 8 to 10%. What are we doing here? Shopify has its own percentages depending upon the level you're at, like all models, that varies. But I figured out there's a little app on my Shopify that I use now that charges. I can set the percentage on every transaction. This is what we charge to cover the processing. In today's reality, everybody is used to getting hit with online processing fees, shipping and handling. You don't buy nothing that's just the price it lists.
And there's a lot of small businesses that do that in store where they are adding on the processing fees or that sort of thing.
Yeah, credit card processing is expensive. There's no way around it. And when your margins are as slim as all farm margins are, you have to get that back. And the other thing is your customers are okay with that. They're okay with 2%, which on the grand scheme is change most of the time in small dollar amounts. If they are willing to buy a product that costs them more than Walmart and Kroger, because it does, I'm going to make a big generalization here, but I'm going to stand pretty firm in it. Most direct-to-consumer beef operations are not matching prices with Walmart and Kroger. We can't.
No, and they shouldn't.
No. Walmart and Kroger give, and I hate to bash them because, again, I shop them, they give false hope as to what really we can possibly do. So comparing yourself to them is like when women look at supermodels and say, that's what I should look like. No, baby, that ain't healthy. That ain't healthy for the budget, right? We just can't do that. So we have found not a single batted eye, not a single comment made about the processing fees.
That's so interesting. Generally I would advise that people incorporate their processing fees into their pricing. Do you feel like if it were a higher initial price, that would turn people away earlier versus, having that fee at checkout?
I don't know. I that's not really something that I have looked into. One of our beef boxes went from $115 to $118. So like when I say we raised them, we went small amounts, you know what I mean? Very little in terms of the margin space there. But we did go up with them. Nothing really has changed. But I would venture to say we as a farm, and this is one that I cannot generalize for everyone, are very lucky in that most of the time we don't see a lot of price impact on our customer retention. They again are not here to buy a cheap steak or to buy cheap tomatoes. They are here to buy from a farm they trust. They are here to buy from a farm that is local. Before ChatGPT started using 3-word slogans, I loved the slogan for us, fresh, local, trusted. That's what people are buying. And it's the trust probably more than anything. We're selling $9 pints of ice cream, but we sell a lot of it because people want to support you. People want to support local farmers. They want to support that family picture that they see when they pull up the Jericho Farmhouse ice cream page on my website. That's what they're buying. And I think as soon as farmers realize that that's the story you're selling, is it a big hurdle to jump over? Absolutely. The guys don't take pictures. I have to hunt them down and snap pictures and chase them around with a camera. But find yourself a high school co-op, FFA, 4-H kid that knows enough about the farm to stay out of your way, not get injured, But also to pack around a camera and do some editing on they don't have to go on TikTok. Use them on your Facebook, use them on your website. But to do some pictures and editing that you don't know, you don't have time to learn how to do, but that tell your story. I think it's invaluable. And I think that's a broken mentality that people, tell the ag story. It's an overused phrase these days, I feel like. But, we were at the farm just the other day. I caught the guys working, and I say caught because they never tell me really what they're doing on a daily basis. I don't see them. But I caught them working cows, and they were culling cows that weren't bred. They were weaning calves, like the whole bit, which for us involves giving calves vaccinations. It involves changing out ear tags, and it involves pregnancy checking. Well, we have a very dear friend that is our vet, and I'm like, Nate, could you just not stick that hand in there so I could get a quick video, please?
Yeah, just hang on just a second.
I need to just be able to pan around and not freak the world out with how this.
And that's a really good point. Is we want to share what's going on the farm, but we also don't want to scare away our customers, right? So
I took shots of where Zach was writing down cow tag numbers and their weights. It was literally on the dirtiest piece of paper they could probably find, but it's record keeping. People want to know you can.
That's the way that it is. I mean, that's right. So.
And so, I know enough about the farm to know that, and you would too. You go watch that video on our TikTok, Nate's standing there, his arms down, his gloves up to his shoulders. You know what he's done. But we don't got to see it. It's not pleasant. No woman that's had children's that's what I want to think about. No, we don't want to do that. But I don't need to video it. There are a lot of horror stories that will scare people away from posting things on Facebook about your face, your family, putting them out there. It's a lot of exposure. You can't negate the risk. But I think the piece comes back to, you got to tell the story. You got to be truthful. You got to be honest and real. You might raise a steak that's 3 times as valuable as the steaks that I raise. But if they trust me more than they trust you.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Authenticity and building that trust, so important. And I mean, we've covered so many good gems. Customer service and building that trust, so important. That's one thing that I see, that some farmers are really proud of their product and they really have a great beef product. And because they're proud of it and they want to hear from the customers that are eating it, they want to sell direct to consumer, but they may not have that customer service piece. And that's so important. So I also think it's really interesting, but that you guys are doing for the most part, it's online only with that one farmer's market. But also listeners need to remember, you said that the guys started this back in 2010 or something. I mean, it's been 15 plus years that they've been building up this customer base. It doesn't just happen overnight. So
COVID's what sent us into the delivery model, to the home delivery model. We were doing, primarily wholesale tomatoes at auctions and at large markets, even the produce terminal before that. And then when COVID, changed the world that we know, they were like, we got to move tomatoes, and everybody's doing a direct to home. So what can we do? So we started doing the direct to home. And so they did, and it worked well. And they kept doing it. Now life is just happening. Lots of things outside of our control are happening, and we're going to, have to relook at that model. What they have done, is a testament to their focus on diversity, their focus on being okay with me to run up there with a camera and tell their story. I've literally jumped into the cabs of combines and got them to sign things. And then this year we finally got a stamp with their signatures. That was life-changing for me. Game changer. But, one of the other things that I would encourage people to think about that a lot of people don't, or maybe don't consider, is for our beef side of things, we have a co-op. We utilize the high school, a farm kid, because feeding cattle is an everyday job. Checking cattle is an everyday job, but it's not an all-day job. For most people, it's not an all-day job. So we really utilize a co-op every year to feed and check and monitor a lot of things, because they're 3 hours a day. That's, and then we can, even in that amount of time, we can usually tack on something else that we need them to get done. So we've had a lot of success utilizing kids. It's given us a great sense of, helping kids get into the industry, getting a taste of the industry. Being a part of our community is really, really crucial to us, as it is everybody, I think, in this part of the world, or part of life, ag in general, I guess.
I feel like you and I could keep talking forever, but before we dive into instead of diving into what spreadsheets you use and that sort of thing, I think this is probably a good place to stop for now. But thank you so much, Mackenzie. Everybody, if you want to learn more, it's jonesbrothersfarm.com, and I'm sure Mackenzie would love to talk to you more about marketing. So,
yeah, and we're on all kinds of social media, so we'd love to chat if you need us.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Meat Success. We hope this episode gave you fresh insights and inspiration to beef up your meat marketing. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, follow us on social, and share with your fellow farmers and butchers. Have questions or ideas for future podcasts? Reach out to ChopLocalUniversity.com. Until next time, remember, there's more than one recipe for meat success.